Okay, so for the practice quiz today, again, you will need pencil and paper, and if you have a calculator, that'd be extremely handy. I don't want to have to do all the calculations myself, so if you guys could step up and do some, that'd be great, because it really is your practice quiz, and it's meant to help you guys prepare for the quiz Friday. So the practice quiz can be found on the Big Ideas website. In fact, let me go ahead and share my screen. I've got it pulled up on my iPad here. It's 10 questions long, but there is not a check answer button, which is why I wanted to do it with you guys. Okay, so this is what the practice quiz looks like. What you will need to do is write this all down on pencil and paper, because you're going to get points for obviously doing the practice quiz online. But just like every other homework, you're going to get points for turning in your work paper as well. So we got to make sure we have a work paper. If at any point you miss any of the questions we've gone over, if your internet connection goes out or you get logged out or whatever, just remember I'm going to be posting this video on the Google Classroom assignment as soon as it gets loaded, and I'll upload it there when we're done. So you can go back, fast forward, rewind, whatever you need to do. So 10 questions. The section 8.1 and 8.2, I know we went out of order. We did 8.1 and then 8.3 first. That was circumference and area first. Then we did 8.2 and 8.4, which was perimeter of composite shapes and then area of composite shapes. This practice quiz is going over 8.1 and 8.2. So it's all about circumference and perimeter. So you're going to see some circles and you're going to see some composite shapes on this practice quiz. The one tomorrow will be all about area. Okay. So we're going kind of go back in order here with this practice quiz. Just a reminder that 8.2 is due today by 2:30 if you did not get that turned in already. And I will collect work papers from you guys when we get back to school, probably tomorrow. So you don't need to post them anywhere. If you want to, you can, but you can just turn them in class. So without further ado, let's get started on the practice quiz. Number 1 says the diameter of a circle is 9 feet. Find the radius. Okay, so remember, when you're talking about a circle, if you are looking at a center point on the circle and you have a line that goes from that center point to any point on the edge of the circle, that is called the radius. If you're looking at a line that goes through the center but goes all the way through the circle, that would be the diameter. And so that's what they're giving us here. They're saying the diameter is 9 feet. Find the radius. Okay, so because the radius is half of the diameter, all we have to do is take 9 and divide this by 2. Who can tell me what 9 divided by 2 is?
4.5.
Nice job, 4.5, exactly. So then our answer for number 1 is going to be 4.5 feet. We'll have to make sure we label everything, but they do give us the labels in the problem. So 4.5 feet is your answer for number 1. Okay, shrink this down a little bit. There we go. Okay, number 2, asking us the opposite thing. This time they're giving the radius and asking us for the diameter. So they're giving us the shorter length, asking us for the longer one. Well, if the radius is half of the diameter, that makes the diameter twice the radius. So we're going to take 3.8 and multiply it by 2. Would someone be willing to do that?
7.6.
7.6, nice job, thank you. So that one's going to be 7, I'll write it down here like I did the other one, 7.6 feet. Okay. You will have some questions on Friday's quiz where you just have to do that, right? Just find the diameter and the radius. Pretty easy, pretty easy. Remember, as long as you remember the radius is the short one. So if you're wanting to know what the radius is, divide by 2. If you're wanting to know what the diameter is, times by 2. All right, number 3 asks us to find the circumference of this circle rounded to the nearest hundredth. So the circumference formula, is pi times diameter. So remember, every time that we used the circumference, we wanted the diameter. And so since this section, this practice quiz is all about perimeter, circumference is going to be included in that. So we want the diameter. Would someone be willing to tell me what the diameter of this circle is?
6.
Good. Yeah, it's going to be twice that radius. So we're just going to plug 6 in for pi. I'm sorry, not for pi, for d. We're going to multiply 6 by pi is what I should have said. And you should be able to use the pi button. I am using my cell phone, so I'm just going to use 3.14 because I left my calculator at school. So 6 times 3.14. I don't like using my cell phone. 18.84. And it does say round to the nearest hundredth, which is 2 decimals. So that's perfect because I have 2 decimal places. So I don't need to round anything. 18.84, and it's just going to be measured in inches. Because it's perimeter, it's not area. So I'm not going to use square inches at all on this practice quiz. No square units when we're doing perimeter and circumference, just regular units. Okay. All right, number 4, moving on. Number 4 says the perimeter of this semicircular region, or find the perimeter, round your answer again to the nearest hundredth. So that's 2 decimal places again. So what's interesting about a semicircle, if you're finding the area of it, you just got to divide by 2. That's we did that last week. It's just half a circle. But when you're finding the perimeter of it, you have to think how many sides it has. Well, a regular circle just has that one curved side. But when you chop a regular circle in half, you actually expose another side to the surface. And so we're going to have to make sure that we count that 9-meter side as part of the outside. So what we're going to do for the perimeter of the semicircle is we're going to use our regular circumference formula. But because it's a semicircle, we don't want to go all the way around the circle. We only want to go halfway around it. So we're going to do 1/2. And then our formula has always been pi times d, right? So we're just going to put a half in front of that. The diameter of the semicircle is this distance right here from one side to the other side, which it gives us as 9 meters. So we're going to plug that in for the diameter. And so we do 9 times pi, which is 3.14. 28.26, but then because it's only a semicircle, we're going to divide that by 2. So 28.26 divided by 2 is 14.13. Okay, so far we have this portion of the semicircle right here. We have measured this distance here to be 14.13 meters. That's one part of the semicircle, but because we cut the circle in half, we exposed, like I mentioned, another side. We need to make sure we count this side here, which we know is 9. So we just have to add 9 meters to get our total perimeter because there's 2 sides on a semicircle instead of just 1. So we're just going to add 9 to that and get 23.13 meters. Again, finding the perimeter means finding the distance around it, not the space inside of it. So I have to think, how many sides does this shape have? And for a semicircle, it has 2 sides. All right, so there's number 4. Number 5, we didn't do any problems like number 5, but I can't just skip it because it'll say you got it wrong if we don't do it. So you don't have to worry about doing any of these types of problems on your quiz Friday. It wants us to find the perimeter. So we have to think, how many sides does the shape have? And I'm counting 5 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we have 5 sides on this one. So we have 5 numbers. This grid that it's on is a 1 by 1, or each square is measured 1 by 1. So they're each unit squares. Okay. So to find the distance on the bottom, we know that it's 4 squares or 4 units long. And then on the left and right side, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. So it's going to be 5 units long. Okay. Now, on the slanted sides, let me focus in on them real quick. So these sides here, these are a little bit different. Okay. If you've ever played Battleship, where you get to actually put the ships on the pegs and everything, the one rule in Battleship, and we played Coordinate Battleship earlier, remember we could not place our ships diagonally. We could only place our ships vertically or horizontally. The reason we couldn't do diagonally is because if you're playing Battleship, the ships don't fit diagonally. You can try to do it, but they won't fit in the pegs. That's because the distance across a square, the diagonal, is actually longer than the distance on the side of the square. Okay. And in 8th grade, you'll talk about the Pythagorean theorem, and you'll actually use this to find out what those measurements are. Okay. The actual measurement of the diagonal of a square, of a unit square, is really close to 1.4. Okay. Which is, you can see why I didn't want to throw this problem in and confuse you guys. The book wants us to round it to make it easier to count by, which I appreciate. They want us to round it to 1.5. So every diagonal of a square is 1.5 units. That's what they want us to round it to. So on this side here, we have 1.5. Oops, we get rid of that. We have 1.5 and then another 1.5. Can someone tell me what 1.5 plus 1.5 is?
3.
3. Nice job. Yeah. So this is going to round. It's not completely accurate, but it's going to round to about 3 units. The other side is also going to round to 3 units. Okay. So the diagonal sides are a little bit more complicated to find. Instead of counting by 1, you have to count by 1.5. Okay. So now we have all 5 sides. The 2 diagonal sides were 3 plus 3. And then our straight vertical and horizontal sides were 5 and 5 for the right and left side, and then 4 for the bottom side. So we're going to add those together. And would someone tell me what all of that adds up to?
20.
Nice job. Yeah, it's going to add up to 20. And then our label for this one, they didn't give us feet or inches or yards. We're just going to put UN, and that UN stands for units. That's what we use anytime there's not a label. And if we're finding area and there's not a label, we put units squared. We just put UN for units. Okay, so 20 units. You can see they actually wrote the word units down here for their label, but you can abbreviate it UN. That's fine with me. Okay, 20. Move on to number 6. We're kind of flying through this thing. Find the perimeter of the shape. It's made up of a semicircle and a triangle. And so it has a total of 3 sides. 1 side, 2 sides, and then the 3rd side, which is a curved portion of a semicircle. And so we have 2 of the 3 sides given to us. We know 7 and 24 are 2 of the sides. Now this 25, we don't want to use this 25. We don't want to use it because it's not on the outside. So we're not going to add 25. That's not going to help us with the perimeter. Now we can use this 25 to help us find this curved edge, but we don't want to add 25 to the total because it's not on the outside. Perimeter is just the distance around the shape, not the distance through it. So for that third side, which I've just highlighted, we know it's a semicircle. And so semicircles use the circumference formula, pi times diameter. But because it's half a circle, we're going to take half of that. The 25 feet that you guys see is that dotted line. That is the diameter of the semicircle because it goes from one side all the way through to the other side. And so that's going to be our diameter. And so to find out how long that curved portion is, we're going to do 25 times pi, 3.14, which is 78.5. And then because it's a semicircle, we're going to divide that by 2 because we only want half that distance. We do not want the full distance of the circle. We only want half of it. And so 78.5 divided by 2 is 39.25. So that's how long the curved portion is. Now we have to add the other two sides onto that, which was 7 and 24. By the way, that makes 31. Would someone tell me what 31 plus 39.25 is?
70.25.
That's what I was getting. Good, thank you. And it says nearest hundredth, which means 2 decimal places, and we have 2 decimal places, so we're good. 70.25, and then that's just going to be feet. Okay. You can see the last several problems, they've used the word about in the answer, because anytime you use 3.14 for pi, you have to round. So it's not exact, but it's really close. I'm okay with you guys rounding pi to 3.14. You don't have to have a pi button in order to find the perimeter. Okay. Number 7, it wants us to find the perimeter again. Again, all these, if you're logging in a little bit late, this practice quiz is all about circumference and perimeter. Tomorrow's practice quiz is all about area. So we're using circumference formula. We're not using any of the area formulas. We're not finding the area of any of the shapes. I'm not thinking, okay, this is a square and I'm going to find all the space inside. That's tomorrow's lesson. That's tomorrow's practice quiz, I should say. We've already done the lesson. We're finding the distance around the shape. So I'm going to highlight the sides, not the spaces inside. Okay, so we have 2 semicircles, it says. By the way, what do 2 semicircles make?
A whole circle.
Yeah, it makes the whole circle. So instead of thinking of this as 2 different sides, I could think of this as 1 full circle, which means when I use my circumference formula, I don't need to divide it by 2 because it's 1 full circle there. And so I need to know what the diameter of the semicircle is. Would anyone be willing to tell me, maybe you know, what is the diameter of the semicircle? It's 12. Yeah, it has to be. And you know, it has to be because it says that that shape in the middle is a square and all the sides on a square are the same. So I know this is 12 and that's 12 and that's 12, which makes my diameter of the semicircle obviously 12. So pi times 12 will give me those 2 curved sides, the 2 semicircle sides, which make up a full circle. Not going to divide that by 2 because it's 1 full circle. So 12 times 3.14 is 37.68. Double check my math there to make sure I got that right. Yeah, 37.68. Okay, so we've got the 2 curved sides. Now we have these 2 sides. That side there, which is 12, and this side here, which is also on the outside, which is 12. And 12 and 12 makes 24. So I'm just going to add 24 onto that. I am not going to add that 12 or this 12 because they're on the not on the outsides, so they don't count for the perimeter. So 37.68. Would someone add 24 to that and tell me what you get?
61.68.
Excellent. That's what I was getting. Wants us to round to the nearest hundredth, which is 2 decimal places. We have 2 decimal places, so that's perfect. 61.68, and then this is going to be measured in inches. Okay, now so far, all these problems except number 5, this one, are potential quiz questions, right? We've seen all the questions like this on the homework. We've done radius and diameter problems. We've done circumference problems, semicircle problems, composite shapes like these. By the way, if you missed any of these, if you logged in late, just watch the beginning of the YouTube video that I'm going to post to the lesson here after this gets done recording and then gets compiled together, so you can go back. Number 8 looks a little bit different. Now we did this one. You might remember a problem similar to this one if I can find it here. I think it was in our 8. I want to say it was an 8. Yeah, right here, 8.2. We did a problem similar to this one when we did this clock problem that you might remember, where that we had to use percents. And so we're going to use our percents stuff that we learned from chapter 6 in order to help us with this problem on the practice quiz, okay? So you wouldn't see a problem like this on your actual quiz Friday, unless of course it might be a bonus problem, okay? But you definitely will have to know how to use the circumference formula. It says the circumference of the smaller circle is 20% of the circumference of the larger circle. Find the circumference of the larger circle to the nearest 10th. Campbell, what's your question?
Are you gonna record this Zoom?
Yep, I'm recording it right now and I'll be posting it probably about 15, 20 minutes or so after it's done recording. It'll get posted to Google Classroom, okay? So the circumference of the smaller circle. I don't know what that is, but I can find it. I can find it because they give us the dimensions of the smaller circle. They're giving us, is this the radius or diameter? This 6 inches. Is that the radius or diameter? Diameter, okay. That's what I want, right? I want the diameter because the circumference formula is pi times d, which d obviously stands for diameter. So pi times 6 will give us the diameter, oops, sorry. That'll give us the circumference of that circle. So 6 times 3.14. 18.84. I think we've had that one earlier. Okay, so 18.84. Okay. I'm going to move you right up here. It says the circumference of the smaller circle, 18.84, and then it says is. What does the word is mean?
Equals.
Equals, good, you guys remember. Okay, and then it says 20%, which as a decimal is 0.20 or just 0.2. And then what does the word of mean?
Multiply.
Yep, times. And then it says the circumference of the larger circle, which we don't know. That's going to be our variable. We don't know what that is. I'm going to call it C for circumference. So now I've created, not only have I used the circumference formula, but now I've created this percentance. And to solve this equation that we have, we're just going to get rid of the times by 0.2. And what's the opposite of timesing by 0.2?
Dividing.
Good, nice job, guys. Yep. I can't see everyone who's talking, but I really appreciate you guys. This is going really well. You guys are chipping in and helping out, which I'm glad, because again, this is to help you guys on your quiz. So we're going to divide by 0.2, and I'm expecting to get a bigger answer because this distance here is going to be smaller than this distance here, right? So when I divide by 0.2, I'm actually going to get a bigger answer. 94.2 is what I'm getting, 94.2. So the circumference C equals 94.2, and that's going to be inches. Okay, and it says find the circumference, round your answer to the nearest 10th, which is 1 decimal place. That's all the decimal places we have, so I don't need to do anything with that. Number 9. Number 9 says the circumference of a roll of party streamers is 11 inches. The circumference decreases by 3 inches after you use the streamers to decorate for a birthday party. Find the diameter of the roll after this decrease. Okay, so this problem is a lot like this problem, the caution tape problem, where we had to decrease the circumference and then find the diameter. They want us to work backwards. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here. The circumference starts at 11 inches and then it decreases by 3 inches. Okay, so what's 11 minus 3?
8.
8. Okay, so the circumference of the party streamer roll is 8 inches. It wants us to find out what the diameter of the roll is. Find out what the diameter of the roll is. So in order to do this, I'm going to write down my circumference formula. And I'm going to plug the 8 that I have, not in for the diameter like I normally do, but since that's the circumference, I'm going to plug that in for C. So that's what it looks like now. Now, if I take you back just a moment before we solve this one, we did questions like this in our circumference and area worksheet. We looked at problems like this where they gave us the circumference like they did right here, and we had to find out what the diameter was. But remember, when they gave us the circumference on our worksheet, they wrote their answer in terms of pi. So when we plugged in for C, there was a pi right there. So when we divided by pi, it just got rid of that pi. That was pretty simple. We also did problems like this in our circle worksheet that we looked at yesterday, except they asked us to find the radius. But again, they wrote their answer in terms of pi both times. This one does not. This one does not write their answer in terms of pi. It's just 8. So we're still going to divide by pi. That's not changing. But there's no pi symbol on the left side of the equation to cancel out. So what that means is I'm actually going to have to use my calculator. I can't just say it's 8. I'm going to have to do 8 divided by 3.14 because they didn't write their answer in terms of pi. So 8 divided by 3.14 is 2.5477707. They want me to round my answer to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so that's 2 decimal places. So the diameter is, if I'm rounding to 2 decimal places, I should look at 3 of them. 5, 4, 7. So I'm not going to leave the 7 there. I'm only rounding to 2 decimal places, but I have to look at the 7. Is the 7 enough to bump the 4 up to a 5? What do you guys think?
Yeah.
It is. It's enough to bump it up. Good. So we're going to say our answer is 2.55, and we're measuring in inches. It says 11 in, yeah. So 2.55 inches, and that's going to be rounded to the nearest hundredth. We got to look at the 3rd decimal place to see if it bumps up or not, which it did. And then they saved the best one for last. A hotel swimming pool is made up of 4 semicircles and a square. Find the perimeter of the swimming pool. Round your answer to the nearest 10th. Okay, so I'm not worried about the space inside of it. So if you're wondering like how much water is in the pool, we're not finding the area of it. Actually, what we're finding is the distance around it if you were to walk around the pool. So because we're just finding the distance around it, that square in the middle doesn't mean anything to me. I don't need the square. Like the square tells you that all the sides are the same, but they actually give you the sides up here. So I don't need the square at all. I'm just finding the distance around. It says there's 4 semicircles. Can't count, 4. So if 2 semicircles makes 1 full circle, then 4 semicircles is going to make how many full circles?
2.
2. Yep, good. So 4 semicircles means 2 full circles. Walking around this pool would be the same as walking around a circle twice. So the circumference formula, the formula for walking around a circle, is pi times d. But because I've got 2 full circles, I'm going to do 2 times pi times d. And the diameter is going to be this distance here, which the problem tells us that is 10 yards. No matter which way you look, it's always 10 yards. So that's the diameter. So 3.14 is pi times 10 times 2. There's 2 full circles. So 31.4 turns into 62.8 when I double it. 62.8, and that's going to be yards as my label. And it says round to the nearest 10th, which is 1 decimal place, and I only have 1, and so that's it. So that's all 10 questions on this practice quiz. That means you guys can, hopefully you have your work paper filled out. If you missed any of it, go back and watch the video. I'm going to be posting the video as soon as class is over. So we're about 20 minutes or so. You can fill out your work paper. Okay. You can either wait and turn the work paper in on, what is today? Wednesday, on Friday. okay, which is probably what most of you do. If you want to post it now, you can, but I still will be collecting them from you Friday in class. Make sure you get all the answers written on big ideas, and that means you guys are done with today's lesson. Make sure you get the 8.2 homework that's due today turned in by 2:30, and I'll collect work papers tomorrow, assuming we're back in school. If you guys have any questions, let me know, and I will see you guys later. Bye, guys.
Wait, Mr. Bright.